This video is a continuation of the Matt Munn video on Ink Well Spoken.
Yes, sir.
All right, my man Josh, I got you one-on-one. So tell me what you've been up to, man.
Oh man. Let's see. Well, on the personal front, I've got my 5 children. So my oldest is a sophomore in college now. So
Pause for 1 second. Did you just say that you have a sophomore in college?
Sophomore in college.
Dang it.
Yeah, at the same school that you and I went to.
Okay.
Yes, UNC.
Legacy.
Yeah, legacy. That's right. Yep. And then I have my 16-year-old who's on her way, and then I got my young ones, 4, 2, and 4 months.
All right.
So
you got a full spectrum, man.
Full spectrum. Been very busy.
So let me ask you this though. So you came in dropping gems on us. Book that you read. Like, what made you pick up this book and begin to kind of embrace? Because you were able to articulate what was in this book with, like, you didn't have to read it. It was like on the inside of you because something resonated with you. So what drew you towards this topic in this book?
So interesting, Reggie. The book, I don't remember where I first heard of the book, but I've been really focused on the idea of what's called the flow state. And what the flow state is, in my mind, is it's this ability when you're able to focus on something so intently that you laser focus on it, everything else, time stands still. Mm-hmm. As an athlete, as a student, in different parts of my life, I do recall for like moments in time being in this flow state. And maybe you have too. I think a lot of people have experienced it where like you're so ingrained in something that you lose time, but it also kind of becomes a little bit effortless. Some people might call it like a runner's high, where you're running and it's like, you don't feel tired. Your body is kind of moving on its own and doing its own thing. And so in this book, the idea is the author says that, hey, like I can teach you how to turn this flow state on and off. Okay. That this is a learned thing that you can almost hone and create the ability to focus so intently on a task that you reach this flow state. It's almost euphoric, apparently. And that's what drew me to the book. And then also, I've noticed like I have a lot of distractions in my life, and not necessarily ones that I want to have. Social media being one of them. Mm-hmm. I used to wear a smartwatch. I'm not wearing it right now. I'm trying to detach from the electronics. I have cell phone for patients. I have cell phone for for home, and all these things. And I realized that like I'm constantly being pulled in different directions. You know what I mean? And this is another thing interesting that I have learned. The concept of multitasking. That term didn't exist before computers. That term was created when computers came on the scene. And how computers were sold was, hey, these things are able to do multiple tasks at one time. Since then, we started to attach that term to people. But the reality is we don't have the ability to multitask. Multitasking is not a thing that humans do. What we do is we task switch. And some of us are able to task switch faster or more quickly than others. But if you are, you're washing dishes and having a conversation with, your spouse or watching a television show, even though you say I'm doing them both at the same time, when your spouse is talking, you're listening to the conversation, or you're not. Yeah. If you're in a happy marriage, you're listening, right? And so, we're actually going back and forth between tasks. So these are things that I'm trying to I want to sharpen my mind, right? So I've been focused a lot on my physical body for a lot of my life, but now I really want to sharpen my mind and really see what this thing can do, right? Like what, God has given us these capabilities physically and mentally. Like, have I really maximized those capabilities? So I'm focused on, so that's what led me to this book. And I am happy I read it. I'm happy that I read it. I've learned a lot of just little tricks and things about myself. For example, like in an 8-hour workday, how much time do people actually spend doing actual work? versus checking emails versus, trying to get back on task. It takes you 20 or 30 minutes to get back on task once you're interrupted, So you're only getting less than 3 hours of productive work time in an 8-hour workday.
I can believe that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could get 5 hours. You could work 4 days a week and get the same amount of work done.
Right.
Right. So that's what brought me to that book.
I'm glad that you brought that up, man. I don't think anyone has ever really thought about that. Like I believe that wholeheartedly, that multitasking, because of how computers are structured, they can multitask. Right. But the human being was not designed to do that. But we've taken on this terminology to equate it to productivity when we're not we're not even designed to do that. And that fits so beautifully into this workshop, this interview that we've been doing, because what I've been trying to help people do is figure out what their genius is, and their genius is back to this flow state that you're talking about. So I want to back up for a minute and just kind of set the stage, and by asking you, like, really quickly, Josh, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
I feel so for me, I don't know how I would define a genius. I think I'm intelligent. I think I'm capable of whatever I put my mind to. There's nothing I've ever looked at and felt intimidated by intellectually or mentally or anything like that. But I will say this: I don't feel that things come easily to me. In the sense that I've had people I've known, I've seen, who can read something and they know it. And they know it. I'm a little bit more of a tactile learner. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I teach it. Once I've done something, I'm good at it. And how I know is when I teach. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like the humility in me wants to say that no, I don't think I'm a genius. But I also don't think Kanye West is a genius either. But apparently he is.
Hey, if you profess it enough times, if you put it out there enough times, right, people start to like, oh, maybe he is, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's interesting, man, and I like you said something just now. So when you first got on, and I was still talking to Matt primarily, you heard me talking about 8 different learning styles, and it sounds like you're familiar with that because I heard you say tactile learner. You're a tactile learner. Most people don't know what their learning style is.
Okay.
And so you heard me when I said a tactile learner is the one that has to put their hand in stuff.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Right. Yeah.
In order to comprehend it. When you read something, that's not really tactile because unless you're blind and you're reading Braille, right?
Right.
So that type of learning style isn't the same as a tactile learner. So you shouldn't compare the two. But just like multitasking for a human being, we've gotten into this habit of defining ourselves by someone else's greatness. And most of the time that doesn't work. Like you just look at somebody else and what they're doing is great, and you're like, I can't do that. So I guess I'm subpar. I guess I'm average. Yeah. And that's not true because if you were to have that person look at something that you do great, they would say the same thing. Absolutely. And so we've got to be able to separate out, I'm gonna stick with this multitasking theme, separate out the task of identifying what it is that makes us unique and not to lord it over somebody else. True humility, Josh, I don't think you were on when I said this, but true humility is not thinking too highly or too lowly of yourself. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole point of me doing this workshop with people and doing these interviews is to make sure that at the end of the day, as much as you know that your name is Josh, right? You should know that you have genius potential and you should be comfortable calling yourself genius. I'm not saying that you can walk around introducing yourself as a genius to people when you meet them. We're not, you're not getting into Mr. West's full-blown theology, right? Or methodology, whatever he's doing right now.
Look, Kanye, if you're watching this, I love you, man. I'm a big fan.
I don't care if Kanye watching it now. I'm not gonna say whether I was a fan, but he's somewhere else now.
That t-shirt thing is a little bit whatever, but hey,
but what you touched on was actually touched on in the documentary that they did on him, Genius. Did you watch that?
I watched the first iteration of it, like a little bit, with the kids and stuff. I only get like a minute of it, and so it really just kind of touched upon more of it. Has him still kind of coming up in the struggle. He hasn't done Through the Wire or any of the first Dropout album. He's writing songs or making beats for different artists and that Talib Kweli and that kind of thing. But he hasn't, but I did see his side. I'm like, okay, like, I mean, I will say that he appears to be very passionate about this.
He's very passionate about what
what
he
I
does.
mean? That's what I did notice so far. Again, the genius part, I'm like, I mean, it's like, is LeBron James, like, he's amazing at basketball, but could you put him in put him in a surgical, put him in a surgical opera and have him perform? I don't know. Like, I don't think so.
That's not his. From what we know of him, that's not his lane, and that's what genius is really about: is knowing your lane, knowing your element, and then completely going in on that. It's about the flow. It's about the what you call it?
The flow state.
The flow state. His flow. LeBron's flow state is different from Kanye's flow state. Yeah, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so you're bringing us some good things that I want to come back to. I want to touch on LeBron James a little bit after we've got a chance to define genius, because how I discuss genius is not just about intelligence. It's not about IQ. It's not about how high your GPA was coming out of high school and college. True, that does define a type of genius, but that's not the only genius that's out there, right? So I want to define genius by 3 components today. I want to define it by passion, talent, and purpose. You heard us kind of discussing it in the aftermath of Matt's interview. We're going to kind of do a soft restart and get that for you too. So the question that I have for you that follows, whether or not you see yourself as a genius, is who comes to mind though when you do hear this word genius? What name, what face pops into your mind? First person.
I mean, it's going to be Einstein. I think that's probably like I never met the man, but just like get the idea of someone that's incredibly intelligent, I guess.
Yeah,
that's who I think of.
But you heard what I said about Einstein, though, right? When he was younger,
sure,
people completely disregarded, overlooked his genius because he didn't conform. His flow state was different than the flow state that they were trying to create in school.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But he persevered, though.
Right.
And so this is as much about persevering in your flow state and your genius as it is knowing what your flow state is not. Right. So most of us get really accustomed and comfortable with saying what our flow state is not. We can see somebody else and they're operating at a high level, and we're like, yeah, Einstein, he's a genius. But to your point, if you put Einstein in another element, his genius is not going to show. Genius is not everything.
Right.
They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be specialized in a specific thing. There's a specialty you have, Josh. I even feel like I hear it coming out now, and I'm gonna talk to you a little more to see if what I'm hearing is lining up with your passion and your talent, though. But when we begin to understand that there are more definitions of genius than we've been conditioned to accept and allow our lives, then we may begin to see ourselves on the inside of it too, and not just look at Einstein, who, like you say, I ain't never met the man.
Right.
I can't speak for you, Josh. I'm gonna speak for me. I don't have anything in common with Einstein. I don't look like him. I don't talk like him. I'm alive. He's dead. Right. But there's a problem when we ascribe genius to someone that we have nothing in common with. Because we won't see it in ourselves when we keep associating it to this person who's on this other level that we're like, well, I can't get there. So I think Einstein understood this, because there's a quote that purportedly comes from him. I'm gonna apologize to my audience for hearing this twice in this same. We got a special little thing when we had these 2 interviews overlap, which I think is pretty dope. But I'm gonna say this quote again for those who are just joining in for Josh. All right. Josh, let me know if you've heard this quote before, and we want to unpack it a little more. Tell me how it hits you. It goes like this: if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it will spend its entire life thinking it's stupid. Have you heard that before?
I've never heard that before.
How does that hit you? What is that saying to you?
I mean, you are trying to repurpose, I guess, the fish, or the idea of the fish trying to repurpose itself to something that it's not, and measuring its value on this new purpose instead of measuring its value on what it actually was proposed to do or made to do.
It was created for the water. It has fins, scales, gills. It's streamlined to function in water. But However, what's the word that you used? You said that the fish does what?
The purpose.
Its purpose. Did you say purpose? I feel like you said another word, but basically you said, hey, look, this fish has now repurposed itself.
Right. Tried to repurpose itself.
To climb this tree. Now,
right.
thinking about, let's just assume this fish is sentient, and of course the fish is a symbol for us.
Mm-hmm.
If this fish has decided to repurpose itself, the question you have to ask is why? Why did it allow itself, or why did it take itself out of its natural element and then all of a sudden try to aspire to climb a tree? Most of the time it's because we look around and somebody else is trying to tell us what it is that we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at the University of Delaware, people looked at my stature and thought that, oh, you must play football. Like, no, I don't. I'm more than what you're assessing me as. No disrespect to you. I know you play football.
Oh yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
People looked at my stature, looked at my girth, and was like, yeah, and they heard I was on scholarship, and they was like, you must play football. Like, no, sir. Actually, I'm here on academic scholarship, full tuition. So I'm going to need to completely shift your paradigm and think different about me, because I'm more than what your world has defined me to be. And if I try to live my life by how you define me to be, I'm going to miss my purpose, and I'm going to be like a fish out of water. Like, what happens, Josh, if a fish stays out of water for too long?
Right, it won't survive.
It won't survive. It'll die. It's like the person that encounters this grizzly bear that you talked about. All of a sudden, what it was built to do, which is to be in water, it's no longer thinking about, because it's like, yo, this is in front of me right now. This is in front of me, and I got to try and get around this tree. I've completely forgotten that my element is water, and it'll die. And so I'm trying to reinvigorate people and let them know and rediscover what it is that their element is, so that they can thrive, find that flow spot you're talking about. Well, for me to help you do that, to help myself, to help you, to help others do that, we got to get into, well, what is genius as defined by 3 different things? And I think I mentioned that already. I'll mention them again. Your passion, talent, and purpose. Your passion is what's going to help you figure out what your element is. All right. But I'm going to define passion a little differently than how we most of the time think of it. Most of the time, we may think of passion. Well, let me ask you, Josh, because I want to make sure I'm not talking too much. Josh, what words come to mind when you think about that word passion?
For me, passion, how I define it, I would say it's something that I do where I get some kind of personal enjoyment from, a pleasure from, something that I see value in, where I place my value. That's how I look at it. It could be work, it could not be work. There are people who, they're passionate about their work, and that's okay, but they see value in it, whether it be like self-value or value to the community or people around them, their family. They see a need, it may be a spiritual part as well, but where you place value, All
right, I like that. I appreciate that. Now, the passion that I want to really focus on, you heard us begin to talk about this word hate, and you may come in like, what did I involve myself with today? Why are Matt and Reggie talking about hate though? And you got to hear where this comes from. So I read this book once. It's nice to know that we're all book readers. I read this book once by a cat named Mike Murdoch called The Assignment. And in that book, it's a Christian, it's like a book on faith. And he's like, look, if you want to figure out what it is that God has put you on this planet to do, you need to tap into what it is that you hate. And here is the thought process in that. He was like, look, the world is broken. Would you agree, Josh, that the world is broken?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The world is broken, right? And there's something about the brokenness of the world that impacts you in a negative way. That most of the time, it happened at an early age. No matter when it happens, when you see it and feel it operating on you, you're like, oh, I don't like that. That makes me feel less than. That makes me feel like I don't belong. It makes me feel like a fish out of water. And so when you begin to focus on that thing, God will grieve your heart in the same way, well, not with the same measure, because he is much greater than us. He'll give you a portion of what grieves his heart and let that drive you, because he's like, I need you to fix it though. Like he wants to partner with us to fix that thing that's in the world that's broken, to bring order back to that area of the world that is affecting you in a negative way. And so he was like, if you can figure that out, you figured out your assignment. You figured out what you've been put on the planet to address. And it very much gives you an empowering thing. Like that grizzly bear that comes out that you talked about when you first got on is very much the thing that affects us in a negative way. This thing is coming for us. It's coming to take us out. And instead of cowering and running away from it or focusing on the hunger that we have that you spoke of, we'll be like David and be like, give me my slingshot. I'm about to take care of this thing right now.
This is like Goliath. Yeah.
No, but before Goliath, you know what? You remember what he said when he faced Goliath? He was like, look, bro, I've been guarding my father's sheep, and I've killed a lion and a bear with my bare hands. I ain't scared of this giant. I faced worse. I faced other things that were just as, towering over me and just as, terrible and what's the word? Terrorizing, whatever. He's like, yeah, I've killed them with my bare hands. Give me my slingshot. I'm about to show y'all something. I ain't scared of this giant. Y'all been listening to this dude talking to you for 40 days, telling y'all whatever. I'm about to take him out. And when you tap into that right there, it won't matter what you come up against. And that's when you came in, I was talking about these 10 little boys. They were up against a giant, Josh. They were up against a school system that was marginalizing them, that was making them feel less than, that was making them feel like they don't belong. And I was telling them, you're already equipped to help break down this giant. The thing that they're making you feel like you don't belong about, your learning style, is the thing that will dismantle and restructure the system and make it so it works for other people outside of those 3 learning styles that we talked about. You feel me? So I'm gonna pop right there for a second and let me know how you processing that.
Yeah, I mean, I missed the beginning of the 10 boys. I heard the end of it. So you're saying that in order to recognize what your passion is, you got to take a step back and look at the things that, I guess the word we're using is hate, the things you hate, the things that are, maybe causing the opposite of love or opposite of good things in the world. Or in my world or in the world. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah? Okay. So you want me to tell you about the things that I hate?
Yes, I do.
Well, where do I start? I'm trying not to sound self-righteous, but I see a lot of evil things that I feel like are happening in the world. I guess I'm maybe more of a conservative person. But I feel like we are taking God out of so many aspects of our lives. Even now, people take offense to when you want to pray in public. And I think that's evil. And I think that with the devil, what's happening is that we kind of are chipping away slowly. But over time, those small chips become big chunks of God in the world. And I hate that. I hate that the world that I feel like my children are going to grow up in is going to have less God in it. Our kids don't say the Pledge of Allegiance in school anymore because it has God in it, or they say it, but they don't say the God part. Then we wonder why kids are walking into school and shooting the schools up. We've taken God out of it. I don't know what the audience is, but I think the whole idea of like genders and that kind of thing, like I hate the fact that I can't disagree with you and still love you. It doesn't work that way anymore. If I don't agree with what you're saying, then I hate you. Yeah. And I don't like that. I hate that because I love you to pieces. I just don't agree with you. Right. And I'm okay with that. Right. I hate that.
That's one of the reasons too. I just want to put that out there. Like when I talk to kids about this gets them talking very quickly. Like tell me what you hate. But I always have a disclaimer where I say, don't tell me a person. I didn't say tell me who you hate. I said tell me what you hate. Because I'm not promoting hating of people at all. But what I'm saying, I'll tell people like if you can't get a name out your head, tell me what you hate about the person. And most of the time what people come up with in high school is hypocrisy. Hey, you act one way around me, but then when you somebody else, you act a different way. I hate that. And I'm like, okay, focus on that. So I just wanted to interject that really quickly. Some people feel uncomfortable using that word hate. But again, you know what? Since I have to reintroduce this session, and I'm glad that you're bringing in our faith because now I've switched from when Matt came on, it was Ink Well Spoken, but now I've gotten into Manu Forti Ministries. Manu Forti Ministries is presenting Ink Well Spoken with my guest, Josh Wallace. We're going to talk about God, and I'm completely cool with that. Mm-hmm. So thank you for introducing that, because we can switch absolutely. In a second.
Yeah.
So the hate that I'm mentioning, because God sees the sin in the world and it breaks his heart. He's like, I hate that there's sin on this planet. He did something to correct it, and that was he created someone in his image and likeness. Mm-hmm. But then the sin got to the person that was made in his image and likeness, and he, Adam, lost his authority, but he already had a plan. He restored the authority through Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And now Jesus Christ has re-equipped us, given us our authority back to do something about the righteous indignation that each of us experiences when we see something operating out of order. We're like King David. Like, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that's talking smack about the God that I serve? Oh, no, we're going to do something about that today. Mm-hmm. And that's why David was called a man after God's own heart, because he was driven by this passion. It was like, I'm a correct that. That is not a part of God's kingdom. That needs to be taken out. I'm going to make I'm going to make this enemy the footstool of God today. Mm-hmm. And even if you mentioned, how a little bit God is being chipped away a little by little, and then now it's becoming chunks. That's how we address the things that we hate that are giants, though. David knocked them out with one smooth stone and then cut his head off. But most of the time, when you're driven by passion, it won't matter if the first strike gets it or if it's the 1,000th strike that gets it. You'll chip away at it. Like, I'm gonna keep getting at this thing until I feel like a chunk comes out and I've done something good. And whatever it is, it'll be so big, Josh, that it'll take a lifetime to address it, but you won't care. Mm-hmm. Hmm. And so I'm hearing some of your passion now, and I appreciate that. It's not a self-righteous, it's a righteous indignation that comes when you see God being taken out of the world.
Sure.
How do you take the creator out of the creation? That doesn't even.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's I'm a sinning person, and as a man, I've always fallen short, right? We all do, but it used to be more covert. The kind of evil that was going on. It used to be kind of like behind closed doors. People did whatever, said whatever, and now it's become the opposite. Where and again, the Bible says it's going to happen. It's not like
we were warned.
We were warned, but it's real. I mean, I've had situations at my job at work where I'm like, I don't agree with this. This is wrong. This is against God. Like it just a person's like, well, I want to be addressed a certain way, and I'm like, something doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right with it, and but if you say anything against that idea, oh, you're a hateful person. Yeah. You hate this person, that kind of thing. And then it's amazing the world that has been created, that we are. It's like, and it's like, no, I don't hate the person. I hate the sin. I hate my own sin. Right. I don't hate the person. That judgment is left to God, not to me. So that's one thing that I hear.
All right, and that's all. That's not all encompassing, but that's a big that creeps into everything, right? So I see you as somebody that probably looks around and gets riled up. Like, man, if I look 360 degrees, I can see something that bothers me, because I can see something that's out of pocket. Right? Sure. And the thing that I noticed about you right away, Josh, is that most of the time I say, hey, look, the thing that affects us in a negative way, traumatizes us, is what we ended up hating. But what I heard from you is it's not even as much about you as it is your children. And like, what is it that I'm leaving my children to have when they've got? I mean, you have the full spectrum from 4 months to a sophomore in college, and you're like, man, what is it that they'll have to encounter that will try to snuff them out? That will try to present an acceptable world that's far from acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And Reggie, I'm getting to the point where I'm realizing, first of all, I'm a control freak. All right, I need to control things, and as I get older, I'm realizing more and more that, hey, there's just things that you can't control. Watching my wife go through labor, there's not anything that I can really do to take away the discomfort that she's feeling and what she's going through. And that's a very, very difficult thing for me. Reggie, if I can't fight it, stab it, shoot it, whatever, I get frustrated.
Yeah.
I want to be able to fix it. I want to be able to make it better. So for my children, I'm not going to be here forever. And if things work out the way that I hope they do, they will live a long time and they will outlive me. And one day I won't be here to try to make it better, to fix the boo-boos, to do whatever. And that is a source of anxiety for me, certainly. Absolutely. What's this world going to be for them?
That's that tactile learner in you. You recognize that, right? That the tactile got to put their hands on it. Like, hey, I got to do something about this.
Right.
If eventually you're not here to physically put your hands on it, then that's the anxiety. Like, how do I? And that's when our faith comes in, because who we represent is going to be here. He's here, yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Right.
And his plan is being executed. His righteousness is being reintroduced and reintegrated into the world, whether we partner with it or not. And we can be believers and not partner with it. I encounter a lot of unbelieving believers who don't, who seem to be more concerned about political affiliations, who seem to be more concerned about gain, who seem to be more a myriad of things, where they don't even realize they've abdicated their authority and given it over to the prince of the power of this world, because he tricked them to say, hey, look, focus on this though. It's the grizzly bear thing. Focus on
Yes, Reggie. Yes, exactly.
And then you put down the hunger, the
Right.
righteous indignation that you're supposed to have, and it's a distraction. And to your point, you're like, man, I'm trying to take away all distractions. That's what I first heard you say. That I was like, oh, that's what he hate though. Like these distractions that take our eyes off of the goal that God has in mind for us, the purpose that God has in mind for us, the destiny that God has in mind for us, right?
Yeah.
So when we start to think about what's broken in the world and connecting that to this righteous indignation, and then having that be the passion that fuels us.
Yeah.
The question becomes, well, how do you fix the thing? Well, as a tactile learner, if you see something broken in your office or something broken in your home, you're gonna want to put your hands on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I'll get on YouTube and be like, all right, how do I fix this? Like, what if, you know what I mean? And I'll watch it, and then I'm gonna do it, and then I might even go so far as to show my son or someone, hey, this is how you do this in the future. That's, so that I can, and that's how I learn. Again, even in jiu-jitsu, I learn something, I do it, and then I teach it. And in medicine and surgery, is you learn one, do one, teach one. And so that's how I learn. And and so even the teaching part is a selfish part where it's like, I'm getting something from this.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm with you on that.
I perfect and hone my craft in this concept that God has given me on what genius is every time I do these interviews one-on-one, and I do the workshop with 25 students or whatever it is, right? I learn something that helps me sharpen that what is it, that scalpel. People like, I'm gonna be more precise the next time I execute this, right?
Right.
So my point to you is I'm moving from passion to the next component of genius, which is talent. Because once you realize that there's something that needs to be fixed, then you're going to look around as a tactile learner. I'm really focusing in on you and be like, what tool? Because most of the time you can't just fix something with your bare hands. You got to have some type of tool, but you got to figure out the right tool to address that thing that's broken. And in this equation, your tool is your talent. And most of the time, Josh, when we think about our talent, it's something that's really common to us that we kind of overlook. Like Moses, when God gave him his assignment and said, hey, look, I need you to go set my people free from Egypt. He was like, I stutter, right? I'm not eloquent in speech. He was like, who made you, dude? Like, who made you? You know what? You want to meet your brother. Don't worry about it. You want to meet your brother, he'll speak for you. Was that the end of it for Moses though? No, it wasn't, because he still came back to the same thing. But God, come on, man. Like, you know me. I can't talk well. And God was like, you know what, man? What is it? What's that in your hand? He asked him that. What's in your hand? And he looked at it. He was like, I just got this staff. He's like, put the staff on the ground. Put the staff on the ground. What happens? It turns into a snake. A miracle happens. And they touch the snake by its tail. Another miracle happens. It turns back into a staff. He's like, you've been equipped. You have everything you need to free my people. And that thing that God asked him, what's in your hand? That's what he's asking us. What's in your hand, Josh, that seems common to you, but that when you turn it over to me and you submit to my will for your life and how to execute it, it's going to perform something miraculous that's going to address righteous indignation that you have and get you into your flow. You got to help me again. What's it called? The flow?
Flow state.
The flow state. I want to say like the flow zone, but I know that's not it. So what do you see that's in your hand, man? What may be common to you that actually God is wanting to use as your talent?
So I think that the talent that God has for me is, I have the gift of gab. I can talk to people, communicate well with people, deliver information. I am an empathetic listener. We can have a conversation and I can disagree with everything you're saying, and you and I can shake hands and walk away. Sure. I will hear you. I will listen to you, and I will have conversation with you. I always walk into a room prepared to make friends with everyone, but I also have a plan to take everybody out if I have to. That's how I'll always, you know what I mean?
Bruce Wayne over here, Batman?
No, but just like in the sense of like, that's to me human nature. Like I see the good in everyone, and also recognize that there's a potential for danger in anyone as well. You, me, our grandmoms, whomever, anybody. And I don't ever forget that. I'm fortunate in the work that I do. I've seen very good things. I've seen some very bad things that people will do to one another. But to my talent, I believe that it is something with communicating with people, motivating people, meeting people where they are, and understanding that our struggles are all different, but looking for the good in everything and everyone, and trying to help people live their best life physically, their health, emotionally, mentally as well. That's what I see there.
That's pretty dope, man. Every once in a while, I'll encounter, since I've been doing these interviews, I will encounter someone who I feel like can really embrace this message of genius and then utilize it, not just to improve their lives, but then to tell somebody else, hey, look, this is something I heard and I need you to know, I need you to hear it too. And I feel like you're one of those people because the thing that you hate is so large and so various and diverse that it can't ever be fully addressed by one person. But the thing about genius knows that, hey, we can do something more impactful and powerful together than we can do separately. And when we begin to light, I talked to Chuck yesterday and he was like, yeah, when I have my match, I'm going to hold up your match and light your fire with what I'm not going to just be like, nope, this is my fire, you can't have it. Right. And I don't think that you're that type of person, because when you come into a room like that and say, hey, look, I see the best in everybody, and you're going to try to approach a person from that perspective. I want to bring out the best in you, because when I bring out the best in you and someone's brought out the best in me, then we can do more harm. And by harm, I mean, we can set some things right and push out some of this stuff that shouldn't be here than we can do individually. And so what I see for you, the way that you can relieve some of this anxiety, the way that you can relinquish some of this control, is to continue to do what it is that you actually said that you do, which is teach people. But not just teach them, but teach them according to what you see on the inside of them, and say, like what I'm doing, I'm saying like, hey, you're motivated by the thing that you hate, and you should actually equip yourself with what God has given you, and then go out and address the thing that you hate, right? Because in doing so now, in the numerous times that I've done this, my genius is now impacting somebody else's genius and doing something that I don't even know what it's doing anymore. It's now manifesting in a way that I'm not going to try and control it. It's now giving life to do something, to address something that maybe I'm not even checking on. My radar is not even on what somebody 6 degrees from me now, who's heard this lesson, is now being like, yeah, I'm gonna address that. And that's how your legacy extends beyond your 5 children. It extends beyond you, because you just got to ignite it in somebody else and be like, hey, you see that over there? Like you can do something about that. You know that, right? And then trust the process that that was a God-given assignment to see this person, to ignite them, and then to let God continue to work in their lives. Because it's about activating people.
Right. Yeah.
And once the person is activated by the spirit that you're moving in, then the kingdom gets advanced. And it gets advanced in a way that maybe you're like, I thought it would have went this way, but you know what? It doesn't matter however it goes, as long as as long as God's purpose is being restored in the earth, it doesn't matter how it happens. And you can you can take your hands off of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you initially put something on the inside of somebody that you know now has sparked a whole creative process. That, you know, I always tell people, you know, I'm more impressed with God who doesn't control everything. I'm more impressed with a God who set this solar system in motion and knew the physics of it to have it sustain itself.
It's amazing. It's funny you say that because my son, Jupiter is, my son's 4. He's dope, man. But Jupiter is known as the Earth's protector.
Yep.
And the reason why it is because the gravitational pull of Jupiter is so strong that many of those meteors and things that come toward Earth are pulled into Jupiter and thus taken away from the path of Earth. And I mean, that's just one thing. And this is just one, but it's like, it's amazing. But Reggie, the funny thing is like, but then I worry, I'm like, how can I take these talents and things and find a way to sustain myself and my family doing this? Because right now what I find myself doing is trying to do a little bit here and a little bit there, but trying to keep the lights on, you know what I'm saying, at the same time, you know? But I know, but what I'm doing, limiting God. I'm putting God in a box, you know, instead of being like, God's like, you can't put me in any box. Why are you, I'm being Moses, like, hey, God, you know, I got these bills to pay, bro. Like, you know.
He knows that.
Yeah. He's like, I know.
What does his word say though? He was like, look, man, Matthew 6:33, it says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all these things shall be added unto you. What are all these things that are added unto you? Man, how am I going to pay? How am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? He said, don't worry about all these things that the pagans worry about, because the pagans don't have a faith in me. So they're worried constantly. They're anxious about the things that I've already made provision for. He's like, look, if the birds of the air have a place to call their home, right?
Right.
How much more important are you than them?
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Him than they are.
Yeah.
So he has a system in place, but we just have to do our part and let go. I'm gonna give you this scripture, man. It's gonna minister to you because it ministered to me, because I felt like I have this same kind of condition. It's Psalm 37:5, and it says, "Commit thy ways unto the Lord, trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass." So here's how I visualize that, Josh. This is my reach. I got long arms, but when my arm gets about to this is when it gets to this point, beyond this, I'm like, God, that's on you. I can't do anything. I could do something, but guess what happens? If I try to do beyond what my natural reach is, I'm gonna end up snatching it. And when I snatch it, I damage it. I try to put my hands beyond my reach, I'm gonna damage it. God is just sovereign enough to be like, oh, okay, you think all right, go ahead.
You got it.
You think that you got it all, go ahead and handle that and let me know how it works out. So I've gotten to a place where I would confess this scripture to myself every day. And during the course of my day, I'd be like, God, I'm right here.
Right.
I take over beyond
make it a difference for me.
Yeah, anything that I do is going to just mess it up. So what's within my grasp to control, I do. And even in my control, I know it's really what God has given me the authority to do. But beyond that, I'm like, God, you got to take care of that. And trust it. Because what did it say? Commit thy ways unto the Lord. Trust also in Him. And bring it to pass.
Yeah. I need to, you know, I got to relinquish the control. And, you know, and dying is one part, but who knows, like, you know, God forbid, but my health could fail. I could physically not be able to put my hands on things, like you said, you know, so there's definitely the aspect of needing to not have my children trust in their earthly father so much as they trust in their heavenly father, who will always be there.
The best way that you can do that for your children is to lead by example. You know, we as dads, sometimes we try to like hide our weaknesses and our frailties from our children. I've stopped doing that. I'm like, look, I need you to know that my reach stops right here and I have to rely on my heavenly father. because he can do infinitely more than I can. And I have these failure moments with my children, and I'm like, look, I teach that fail. There's an acronym for fail. It's the first attempt at learning. And it's like, as long as I learn from my shortcomings, then it's not a failure. I know now where my stuff stops and where God's begins and ends, right? It doesn't end, right? And so showing your children that is a way to relinquish their control too and trust in him. But like, you know what? He got to bring it to pass.
Yep.
I'm coming up on an hour with you, and I want to be respectful of your time. I want to talk about this for a quick second, because I heard you mention LeBron James, and we were talking about the flow
state.
Got it.
Yeah.
We're talking about the flow state and recognizing that people have different flow states, Kanye versus LeBron.
And just some people call it being in the zone.
Yeah.
I've also heard that before. That's a more common term. I call it flow state, but some people say they're being in the zone as well. We go ahead, sorry. Okay.
No, it's cool. I want to highlight, I'm going to end it with this. I want to highlight LeBron James's genius.
Okay.
As it relates to this equation that ultimately God gave me to give to others. So most people will, when they think about LeBron, they'll say that, his genius is basketball. Like he's operating in his flow state. He's in the zone on the court. And I disagree. And I think a lot of athletes, get halfway or a third into their genius and don't finish it out because they haven't used their platform and their resources in a way that unlocks their genius the way LeBron has. And I'm not even a fan of LeBron, but let me tell you what LeBron's genius is as I see it. It's clear that his talent is basketball. Won't contend with you there. But what he did beyond the court, what he has done off the court is showing me his genius than what he does on the court. Because he took his platform, he took the resources that he was able to get over the 20 years that he's been in the NBA, and he began to address what I believe is a thing in his life that he hates, and it's poverty. You know where he grew up. He grew up in Akron, Ohio. You know that the resources there were limited. That forced him to go into private school because the public school system that he grew up in and was just lacking. Forced him to go into private school so he could explore his talent and expand it to the levels that he's able to get to. So what he did a few years ago. So I believe his hatred is, I hate poverty. I hate the limits that it puts on my people. I hate anyone that's limited because of socioeconomic conditions that's outside of their control. So you know what he did, right? A few years back, he built a public school that has all the latest equipment, the most updated books, good staffing, right? He didn't make it a private school though. He didn't build this thing back in his home city and then make it so that only certain people can get in, the way we kind of limit genius. Only certain people can get in. Nope. He said, I'm gonna make this public because this did not exist when I was here, and it almost jeopardized his whole trajectory.
Yeah.
That's genius. He took this thing, he said, I'm not gonna focus on me. I'm not gonna get to this certain level, and now it's about me getting multiple cars, getting my mama a house. I'm sure he's done that. But he extended it to say, what can I do now to make sure that the people behind me, the people who are still in this poverty, have access that I didn't have. That's his genius.
So like you said, he took his match and took his flame and lit somebody else, lit a bunch of people's flames. It sounds like.
A bunch of people.
Yeah. Wow.
That's the goal.
Yeah. That's nice. I think I always I think about the idea of being on your deathbed. What are the things that are going to haunt you? I ask myself that all the time. What are the I wish I had done? I wish I could have. I wish I should have. What are those things? Those things will haunt you, I believe. I don't want to have anything. I want to be able to have peace and know that like my children are okay, that they're with their heavenly Father that's going to be, and maybe have some have some solace in knowing that I maybe lit some flame. You know what I mean? Definitely.
Absolutely.
That's dope, man.
Yesterday, Chuck said he called it dying empty. He said, I'm going to leaving nothing like left. Like I'm going to put it all out there.
Yeah.
And once I pour it out myself, then it's going to somebody else to do something that they otherwise.
Yeah, I like that. Dying empty. Yeah, exactly. Right. He's living it to the fullest, running it out. Put it on eat empty. all the gas, everything's gone. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty much the extent of what I wanted to chop it up with you about today, man. I want to end this. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to end this the same way I started it, by asking you, Josh, having heard all these different things now and this redefinition of genius and passion. Josh.
Yes, sir.
Do you consider yourself to be a genius?
Yes, sir. I do consider myself to be a genius. 100%.
And it's a continual exploration. It's not like you've arrived. Having said that, I see it like a puzzle pieces. You have to begin to put it together and see, like, you have, most of us have, I believe, multiple passions and at least one or two talents. And sometimes the talent and the particular passion don't fit, but it's just a matter of, okay, let me turn it this way and see if they come together. And that's where that acronym comes back into play. You know, so now you're on a new court. Now you're on a new pathway to figure out what your genius looks like. Now that you self-affirmed, and then also what it looks like in your children and the people around you, and realize that as you begin to do that, you're leaving a legacy that's going to extend way beyond your reach, way beyond your control. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. So when do I get to do this again?
When do you get to do this again?
Yeah, this is dope.
Hey, man. We can talk. We can make this I've never had anyone ask that. We can make this a weekly, monthly thing, man. Where we can check in, like, yo, this is what I've been doing for the last month.
Right.
You think about this. Hey, I'm a minister, B. This is what I do. So all right. Hang on for a second. Once I kind of give the signal and sign us off, just hang on for a couple extra minutes and we'll chop it a little bit. All right.
Okay.
So, this has been Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I have been your host, Reggie Key, and this is my genius guest, Josh. Josh is my uncommon cue to see the genius in you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.